Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and I would like to welcome all the panelists. Thank you for taking out your time and being here with us. The topic for this panel is HR strategies for inclusive talent management and building a diverse workforce. Now, I would just like to introduce the topic a little bit. When we talk about inclusive talent management, it does not stop at just recruitment. It involves the decision-making process, the policy formulation, and each stage of whatever an organization is going through. And diversity, again, today is not just limited to male and female. It includes people with disabilities, generational diversity that we spoke about. It includes the LGBTQ plus community, diversity in thoughts as well. So I want to keep my first question open to all the panelists. We'll start from that side, Deepti. What could be some HR strategies or policies, and what are you doing at your organization in order to create an inclusive culture?
Thank you, Savi. Thank you for the invitation. I work with, just a little background about myself. So I work with a company called Microsystems. We are in the automobile sector. I work as a CHRO. For us, as you have rightly mentioned, the diversity is not only the gender-specific hiring, number one. What we do is we have different segments wherein we hire people. It's not hiring is the only strategy which we use. We make sure that whenever the talent is there, that talent has been retained. The opportunities which we provide to the entire, all the employees are very, very different. So for us, number one, the retention part, because this auto sector is evolving and the talent is, the scarcity of the talent is too high because of the technology which we do. We provide, we have different platforms with us. Like for example, what we have done is, She for She is a platform which we have created wherein we, for the talent management, keeping the diversity also in mind, we invite the women's which are on career break, we give them a platform. We have generated a platform wherein we give them an opportunity to work with us, and we give them, the internship program for 12 months, which is a paid internship, and after that we hire them and retain them on board. So that is a best practice across the auto sector which we are doing, and we are making sure that another is the training piece, training that this particular talent which we are hiring is something which we opt for in our particular sector. So it is why I'm talking about training, because our sector is pretty different and diverse sector, and EV is coming in, and every now and then the technology is changing. Today I'm hiring somebody, and after 3 months we see there is another demand which is coming, which is our R&D team works on, and then we have to train another talent. So, we are focusing more on that particular train the trainers, and making sure that these guys are trained in the organization. Third is, before this panel, people talk about the shadow boarding. So we make sure that we have that talent pipeline which is ready, which we call it young talent pipeline, wherein we make sure that the young talent which is there in the organization is being retained. They've been given an opportunity to think, to deliver more and to participate more. And these are few of the things which we've been doing it, differently in this particular sector. Yeah.
Thank you, Deepti. Dheeraj, your views?
Yeah, diversity, inclusion, equity. I started my career, I think, 20 years back. Since then, I'm hearing this, these three golden words. So I think as an HR fraternity, everybody is aware of it, that what is the importance of these three words. And I want to congratulate Business World that now after 20 years as well, we are keeping this point intact and we are emphasizing it again, because this is the right fraternity which is sitting here to go and act as a catalyst and promote diversity. So thanks to Business World and the team that they are thinking still that there is a need in the organization. So for me, if you have to promote diversity and to get the right benefit, there is most important thing is awareness. That as an organization, leaders, people managers, because there are generations, right? New generation coming in. There are older generation working with us. Everybody should be on the same page that this is a very important. So the most important thing to me, which has worked in my previous organization, is storytelling. Right? You call somebody in your organization, maybe a smaller session, let's say for an LGBT. You call somebody who's a part of that community. They share their success stories. You know that what difficult word they are coming from. And you call any female leaders. I'm not going into a diversity which comes from West, right? There are black, there are brown, there are white, they have different challenges. I think we are trying to opt those as well. But in India, needs are very different. Our maturity level is different. For us, diversity is very different. I think 50% of the organization, for them, diversity is only gender diversity, right? That is not the case anymore. So, I can discuss on and on, that's coming from my heart. But the most important thing, everywhere I see is the awareness. If your managers, your leaders, your HR, your engineer is aware of it, that why it is important, you will not have any challenges, or you don't need to maintain those hard metrics about diversity and showing it to your management leadership to put in on a governance, have to be on the KPI. And I don't think leadership or HR, as an HR leaders, we should take this to on our chin, right? I have a KPI to hire 15%, 20% or 30%. I'll end up hiring 30%. It is not the case anymore, right? So equal opportunity does not come that you give 50% of the opportunity to gender without thinking about the role. So I think discussion is on. I'll keep adding my input.
Thank you. Thank you, Dheeraj. Megha, your views?
Yeah. So let me, go a step backwards from where we even say awareness. So we touched high level of how we define diversity in India, or probably in the organizations. Now, typically some of the major things that probably in this room of HR we touch is gender, sex, color, if you're a global organization, LGBTQ, neurodiversity is one of the topic I spoke in BW last time. These are the usual factors that we think about, or probably nowadays experience as well. What if I was to say that this is only one aspect of diversity that we're focusing on? There are actually 4 aspects that we can start to think about, and it's also about how we're defining diversity, equality, inclusion in the organization, which means, think about, internal diversity. And internal diversity is nothing but what you're born with, which is your color, your sex, your PWD, LGBTQ, your orientation, which you can't change. And that's one aspect of where most of the industry is, really touching upon on multiple interventions that we're doing. The second aspect of diversity can really be external, which means how you brought up. What are your experiences that you've gained, which brings in your thought process when you think about diversity? How many times do we start to focus on, what kind of an experience the person has come in? What is the cultural background that the person has bring in? And therefore that influence on how we operate as an organization. That's the second type of diversity. The third type of diversity can be organizational diversity, which is, hierarchy of the organization, job functions, what works in the organization. Now, if you are a sales organization, speed, agility, decision making, now that influence the culture of the organization. And that's where your inclusion, how you're making decisions, how it is influencing, how people are experiencing your culture. It's another way of looking at diversity inclusion. And your last is the world view, which, how does the world influences, and that's where your religion, your politics, your cultural affiliation to a group, what impacts the world from a thought standpoint comes as a diversity. And that's where global organizations need to put in a lot more focus around there. But it's all about how we categorize and where we focus. I think all 4 are important. I still feel that at least in the corporate sector, we're probably lingering around the first piece of internal, DEIE, but there's a lot more to it. I mean, how much do we put it, categorize, and start to put focus is definitely a lens that we need to start thinking about.
Right. Thank you, Megha, for sharing that. Dr. Rai, what are your views on this?
Thank you, Savi. Let me act as a devil's advocate. after listening to the three esteemed panelists. Why are we talking of DEI? One side, every organization claims equal opportunity employer. The other side, we're talking of DEI. I see a contradiction, an oxymoron here. Right? Virodhabhasa isme. Right? Secondly, when it comes to DEI, why can't we treat anybody equal? Let's begin with gender first. Right? Why do we have to, like our friend said, that I have to hire 30% women? Why? It's job fitment. What are you looking for? I'm like, are you anybody? I'm like, with all 100% women or all 100% people with disabilities, we are not running a charitable organization. We are running a business organization, all of us. Right? So the point is, let's first start taking action at the cultural level, wherein all of us are treated equal, irrespective of the gender, disabilities, special abilities, sex orientation, whatnot. Right? So the point I'm trying to make or put across is, let's treat individual for the role, irrespective of any other thing. So let's make the person inclusive, feel inclusive inside the organization, irrespective of any other factor. So once we start treating our people equally, right, equal opportunity inside for internal promotions or for talent management, talent development, let them be treated equally on all aspects. Everyone should be given an equal opportunity to prove oneself in the organization, and the best one wins the race. Simple. I'm like, we shouldn't be talking about gender or the other diversities we are talking about. So the first thing, like Megha said, I'll go backward, one step back. I'm going also a step back. Culturally, let's start treating ourselves equals. And once if we are convinced, and this statement comes into the DNA or the fabric of the organization, I'm like, we shouldn't be talking about this subject anymore. So that would be my view.
Yeah, I just want to add here, just let me add some spice to it. A problem is not to think or hire 30%. The problem is unconscious biasness. When somebody hires 10, male or a female, and looking at their preference of gender. And that is the reason we should work as a catalyst, let's say, and that's how, you know, it multifolds and become a target for HR. So the problem is unconscious biasness, but that result to are different targets, right? So problem is not that organizations are not treating people equally, but somehow we felt after looking at years of data, now everybody has our data points and we can take decisions accordingly. And we realized that there is a place wherein a lot of unconscious biasness is there in most of the organization, at least in my organization. To remove that, you have to spread awareness to make sure people are conscious and they are taking decisions accordingly. Irrespective, 10 female hiring a male or 10 male hiring a female, but most of the time it is otherwise, right? You will not find female-centric organization and they are reluctant to hire male. And that's how we have our own unconscious biasness as an HR as well. And that is what we are struggling today.
That's where I said it has to come into the DNA and the fabric of the organization.
Thank you. Rakesh?
Yeah, so all of them have spoken about DI, and I apart from what I am, my profile is put up there, I also lead the diversity, equity, inclusion for IndiGo. We spoke about diversity, person with disability, man, woman. That's the physicality part. And to understand diversity, I think there is another element. And I will go ahead and talk about what are some of the things, actionables that we can do to make it even more conducive at every organization. One is, of course, we talk about psychological safety. All right. And when you talk about psychological safety, I'll give you an example. And this was in Kolkata when I was in a seminar. And there we spoke about hygiene for women, especially during their menstrual cycle, How much are the men aware of women pain, women problems? Are we enough and more talking about it? These are the basic things, okay? We speak about men and women. There is equal impetus and importance should be given to discussions like this. Organizations where there are a lot of women, how much are the men aware of it? I'll give you another example. When my daughter was born and what my wife had to undergo. So I've seen that as a husband, and then later as a father. So I know what a pain that a woman goes through during that period of time. And when she comes back, so she's an entrepreneur, and when she has to get back to her business, she had to climb first floor. That's what she did till she was about eight months of pregnancy. And then she delivered, and the baby was pretty healthy because she said, oh, I was doing a lot of exercise. But otherwise, post that, when she has to get back to work, because she's an entrepreneur, so she can take her time, reach her shop at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock by taking care of the baby in the morning time. But when the women, they go to work, okay, who's taking care of their kids at the back end? Are there enough of crash? So there is, one is from what the Act standpoint and what the government says, but these are the kind of, even if the companies cannot organize crash at their own location, how much are the men aware of these challenges? How much are the people who don't know what a woman goes through after a childbirth aware of those challenges? And if those discussions happen openly, then there is a psychological safety atmosphere that will be created in the organization. That's one. Two, that is and there are so many cinemas that have come of, I think there was one of Akshay Kumar, Padman, and the things which spoke about, menstrual cycle. And in that seminar that I'm talking about, which I was in Kolkata, there was this lady who was a very prominent, personality, and I'm somehow not able to recollect her name, and she was also deputed by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment to do lot of intervention for folks, in terms of menstrual health. And she said it's very important. You see what happens during my growing up days, I had a brother. And my brother, when I had this menstrual cycle for the first time, I thought I've got cancer. Because she was not aware of it. She said, I was not aware that, because I always thought that if it is bleeding, it has to be cancer. And I got so worried, I said, cancer, I'm dead, I'm going to die, and this and that. When my mom came and said, Arre, not to worry, this is nothing, this is like this is like a God's gift. So now God's gift, science is, they're defying science and saying God's gift. So that point in time, she's an old lady, she's about 60, 65 years of age, so that's how we grew up. But now the culture has evolved, our culture has changed, so there has to be openness in terms of discussion of challenges that women face, and it should not be hidden. Hidden because, it will be considered as a taboo. The second thing, we move on to, I think there is another element which was there in your topic, which is to do with LGBT, with the LGBT. We can talk about LGBT, companies increasing the numbers in their organization. But this most of the times is seen that the attrition goes high. And there's a data that says that attrition goes high wherever organizations have not done enough and more of sensitization. Now what is sensitization? What is empathy? Okay, empathy is when you feel yourself in people's shoe. Okay, and that is what is empathy. So does a heterosexual know what is it to be a gay, to be a homosexual? So having those discussions, that okay, it's equally absolutely okay, it's just that the gender orientation is different, sexual orientation is different, and it's absolutely okay, it's not a very a mysterious thing to happen, it's been there in the society for a very, very long time. So sensitization, I feel that's the key towards creating, otherwise, and then what will happen, the people won't stay. So if you sensitize good enough, your people are going to open up and come out of the closet themselves, increasing your count of the LGBT, just in case you want to do a tick in the box. Otherwise, if you're doing a real good intervention and intense intervention, then these kind of conversations should continue happening in the organization. Third part is persons with disability. The very important thing that I realized when I was intervening and into this persons with disability, to see how do we bring more people in the organization. And one realization was to do the accessibility audit. So we did a lot of accessibility audit, and thanks to one of the lady, I can proudly tell her name, Lina Sodi, and she's right now in Canada, and she's from BIY, and we took her help, and she said, you listen, you have to be very careful. If you tell everybody we are giving job, there will be a lot of people around, and you might find the skill and the talent. But tell me something, if they come in and you can't provide them a washroom, you can't provide them a proper floor where the wheelchairs can roll, And you can't give them the right infrastructure where they can have ease of access. So don't just bring them in. And that point in time, that struck very bad onto the head, though everybody has KPIs, as he said, that there are these business sense that it makes. But these are the very, very important elements to go to the board and say, no, I am not going to get in people unless and until I know it's going to be a safe space for them. So what am I creating? When I'm creating a safe space, I'm creating a psychological safety for that person. And when there is a psychological safety, the numbers will automatically happen that need not to be looked into. So what needs to be looked into is the sensitization, impetus on their safety, creating that environment of psychological safety, and how am I mentally able to stay in this organization the way I stay at my home. I should not have that fear of anything else.
Right, I agree with you that sensitizing the employees is very important, and I also agree with Dheeraj that still there is a lot of bias and prejudice that occurs and persists. Deepti, I want to ask you how effectful are the employee resource groups, ERGs, or other such initiatives or policies that can help sensitize the employees over these issues?
Yeah, I was just adding to Rakesh's points, wherein he was just mentioning on the point called gender sensitization, which is pretty important. First and foremost thing, we are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. How many of us, how many of our manager, because in the organization there are different kind of employees. If I talk about my current organization, we have lateral talent which is there. There's a new fresh talent also which is coming. So maybe Gen Z or millennials, they are very well aware, but other people, they are not at all aware. For them, diversity is just hiding a women. First and foremost thing, one is pretty important, is embrace difference. First and foremost thing, we should know. This is what, it is not only to deal with females, it is a kind of different sort of groups which we bring it on table. Say, as Rakesh had rightly mentioned, basic amenities which are there in place. It was the first job of mine, HCL, so wherein we used to have 10% staff, working staff who were really disabled, who were deaf and mute. So we were trained in the induction itself, how to, communicate with them. So this was a part of induction, so we have to make it a part of our culture of the organization. How many of the managers, while doing a performance appraisal, are paying attention, just giving them an education and awareness? Because, it is typically in different sectors. Of course, I have worked with manufacturing setup, I'm now working with this automobile sector, I've worked with IT sector. Of course, the different, there's different strategies which we opt for into a different kind of the organizations and sectors we work for. If I have to talk about the auto sector, people have a mentality only a male can do this job, a female cannot do a job, or a person with disability cannot work. But that is not the fact. What we did, we had run a campaign called Embrace Difference, wherein we made sure that there were different kind of techniques which we opt for. One was, as he has mentioned, train the trainer. Another, first and foremost thing, you should know how to deal with different set of people. The third is equal opportunity employer, equality in pay. Lot many times, once we have seen, we are doing an appraisal. So what is the parity in the organization? That itself was missing big time. So whenever we are having an interview, or whenever we are doing any kind of appraisals or promoting talent, you have to see a talent as a talent. You have to make sure that you need not to find a difference between a male and a female. And this is which is happening in a reality. We are making sure that at least we are sitting as a panel and the fair treatment is being given it to the employees. These are the basic things which we have to put it in place, and which we are trying. Initially, okay, we have to hire for a heck of hiring. There's a target which has been given, as we told, of course, diversity hiring. But, I personally feel, of course, there has to be an equality, and every employee should be given an equal opportunity to work, to perform. And, so we have seen one more thing, Savi. So in my current organization, where only the male, employees are leading all the department. There was hardly a woman who was leading the function. So it's not they do not have talent, but once asked, they said we were never even given an opportunity. Whenever there is a job rotation, this was not communicated. So it is very, very important for us as an HR or it's not only HR, it is a people manager who has to drive this in the organization, not standalone HR can do or HR business partner can do. It is we being an organization, we have to drive and we make sure that we put it in each and every person's KRA. It might be looking a very old school of thought, but yes, in the leadership, wherein you have to make sure that whenever there is any kind of opportunity, this should be given it to all. So this is what we personally have been doing.
Right, thank
Yeah.
you. So you spoke about women leadership. Dheeraj, I want to ask you, several studies, several reports show that India is still far behind if we compare it to other developed countries in terms of women representation in leadership roles and also at board level. Why do you think that is? What are the challenges?
Of course, I'll share my thoughts, but the last answer comes from your heart, right? She was so passionate about that equal. So why? Because every company has a different stage of maturity. And I would not say India, there is some maturity level for India as well. Depending on your industry, depending on your location, you have a maturity level. So you will find IT organization, you will find there are fair share of women leadership. You go to any manufacturing organization, you will not see, we are witnessing, Deepti, that there is no share of leadership, no seat at the table. So it is all depending on your organization, your personal experience, your word, that what level of diversity leadership and what is your acceptance level as well. Some people think some leadership, some CEOs, they run, a lot of women entrepreneurs are running. So there are no challenges at all, right? So, and then there are legacy organizations. Those also, new generation is coming, new HR coming on board, they are bringing those changes. So, I don't think I have a certain figure that we are at 30%, 40% or a 50%, but it's a long, long way to go because few advanced IT organizations are not representing India. Sorry, again, technology hassle. I'm sorry, losing my thought. Not all these organizations who are in advanced stages, working in metros, Delhi, Bombay, you will not find these problems are as grave as they are in manufacturing. They are still struggling with sensitization, hygiene. Not that there is nobody on board, there is nobody to represent. So different experiences, different organization, different industry. It's a mix of things, I would say.
Right. Megha, in your personal view, what do you think are the challenges and how can leaders encourage more women representation in these roles?
Yeah. So let me step back again, right? Pre-COVID, 5 or 6 years ago, I went to IIT Delhi for a speaker session. In a batch of, that was the second year batch, it was an auditorium full of approximately 120 students. Out of those 100, and they asked me this question, according to you, what can you do? What can organizations do? And I told them one thing, in a batch of 122 sitting today in this room, there were only 10 women, 10 girls in that batch in IIT Delhi. Today my daughter is 6-year-old. She's studying in India's #1 school today. I don't want to take name. In her batch of 35 students, there are only 7 girls. And when I went to the junior school principal and I asked her, why is that? The response that I got from them was, oh, we never thought like that, it just happened. And I stepped back and I said, okay, it happened, but now even when you're taking the newer admissions, because there will always be some people who move out of the city from Delhi and stuff, why are you still hiring, boys? Why are you not thinking about what's the diversity percentage? She said, oh, we never thought like that. And they now have started. So the thought has to step back from not just corporates and the government. It has to seed into every single act of our life, every single stage. I think that's the answer that I will say, why is India struggling today? Because it's not corporate responsibility to suddenly get the best of the engineers, if IIT Delhi kind of an institutes are not focusing on, are they having a diverse slate of students? Because today, if best of the brands think about we only want to hire from top B institutes, you don't have diversity to hire from. Goes back from school. Imagine class 1, number 1 school in India, having 6 girls. That's where our problem is.
Right. Thank you, Megha. Dr. Rai, I want to ask you, how can leaders encourage more participation in terms of hiring more people with disabilities and the underrepresented groups? What is your idea on this?
Before we even think about hiring people with disabilities, or what we call it as people with special abilities, we need to ensure that all possible facilities are available. And I would just like, at the cost of sounding repetitive, what Prasad said, is that the psychological safety, the physical safety, the emotional safety needs to be considered first, and all possible facilities which anybody may need has to be provided. Will need or not, that's a different question, or that's a different tangent. But may need, we need to ensure that they are there. And once we are able to showcase those facilities being available to people with special abilities, that's where we would be talking of the equal opportunity employer, and just not with pay. Right.
Thank you, sir. Rakesh, now when we talk about women who are taking a sabbatical or a career break for, let's say, XYZ reasons, and they're coming back, sometimes they do not get the equal opportunities when we compare it to the other male colleagues that they have. Why is that? How can that be reduced? What are your views?
A short and simple answer to this is just make it mandate that everybody should get equal opportunity. But that's not that Savi has expected me to say out here. But, see, and I'm talking about, let's take cabin crew. When cabin crew, they come back to work after their, after the delivery, after the childbirth. So obviously there is an act and there are certain maternity leave and things like that. But you know what? We have provisioned a certain number in the operations to give extension beyond the required numbers of leave as per the act. For simple reasons that, as I said earlier, that people are now sensitized to ensure that what is the pain of that woman who's gone through the delivery and what will she live with for the next whatever number of years is important. Second, you see, and I have seen that, though my family lives in Kolkata and I live here, but whenever I go there 2-3 days every week, so when my child was born, I could see my wife, so both of us had to be awake because the child is awake in the night for I don't know what reasons. There is a reason I can tell you separately, but the child is awake and then both of us are awake. And the child doesn't know that we have to go to work in the morning. So then that's the thing. But for me, it's okay because it's my weekend. But for her, she has to go to her business. She has to go to her shop. And that's an issue. These are the kind of reasons why, in fact, I look after in-flight and, and when I saw that myself, I went and spoke a lot about it. That, you see, it's not easy. It's, Are, aa jao, kam pe aa jao, kal se kam pe lag jao, why is she not coming? Let's give her a warning letter, let's send a show cause notice. All that is very easy to do, okay? But what is not easy to do is think for the other person. And it's not easy, I'll tell you. It's not about the fact that everybody can think the way everybody else's thinks. It's not easy. See, we evolve and we have a very, very different mindset. I'm a psychotherapist, so I know how mind works, at least to the very fundamentals. That every individual is different and we think different. And the belief system that is created is the time when we have grown up. And when we are growing up till about the age of 14 and 15, that's where the belief system has got created. If the belief system is very strong and I don't care for anything else, it will be like that. And we will keep telling the people, hey, why don't you think like me? I think so compassionately. I have got a lot of empathy. Why don't you think? Arey bhai, he doesn't think. Because the belief system is different. Why do I need to compel him to think? But the one thing that can compel is act. One thing that can compel is company guidelines. One thing that can compel is the policy. One thing that can make that environment possible is the leadership. So though we say rules are made to be broken, but I think if the rules are enforced, if there is a strict guidelines, and if there is a strict adherence to all the things that we have created, then it is quite much possible, and it is the leadership to make it possible. See, all of these will have to culture flows top down. Okay, it has to be that way. The leader has to walk the talk. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So if it has to happen by danda, or it cannot happen, you know, by your own will, unless and until you have all fathers in the organization to say, okay, all the women who come back from it, I know I've been a father, you know, the way I'm tom-tomming about myself, being a father.
Right, thank you. Yes, sir. Yes.
Like my friend said, policy, guidelines, and this is what to add value to our women employees in the organization. The mandatory 6 months of maternity leave, and there is a free will for next 18 months to work or not work, or to come to office, not work in, not the right word, but work from home. So we are also a manufacturing company, but then we have allowed our women employees to work from home for 18 months after their 6 months of maternity leave expires. So it's purely up to them, and we believe that 2 years, or I mean like plus and minus 2 months for a baby to be acclimatized to all the weather, the family, etc., is good enough period for women to have again come back and start working full-fledged. So that's where we made that policy and the guidelines that for 18 months they are free to work, choose to work from home.
Right. Thank you for sharing what
Just
Servotech
to add to
yeah,
his
Deepti.
point, so, you know, once we were talking like working with the women's are coming back from their career work break. So, you know, what we have done and what is going well with us is we are making sure that whosoever is joining with us, you know, or whosoever has taken a career break, we have recruited that particular female or, you know, in the organization. We're making sure that whatever has been their experiences like during this break, and what is the kind of, you know, what is the kind of, how should I mention, like, you know, what happens here is that whenever she joins back, there is lot many things which are running in her mind, like, you know, will I be able to perform better, how will I cope up with the work. We make sure that, you know, she's sharing after 1 month of completion of her in the organization, she's sharing her experience, how her manager has behaved, how has been the journey so far in the, you know, while coming back, and what was previously done. You know, these small little initiatives wherein, you know, all female folks are coming in and she's sharing her experience, giving an opportunity to other females also to come up well. Another thing what we practice and we have started just now is whenever somebody is going for a maternity leave, we make sure that we schedule a call with them. After 3 months of her delivery, we make sure that we talk to her, we let her know these are the development which is happening in the organization, we value you, this is what is happening in your function, so that she is totally aware and she's feeling a part of the organization. You know, a lot of time this particular insecurity keeps on running in females' mind, like whether I will be able to come back or perform, will the organization will be welcoming me the way it was previously. You know, this particular thing has really worked pretty well with us, and you know, this is what I personally feel, and we encourage more such things and more such strategies which we implement in the organization.
Thank you, Deepti, for sharing that. Dheeraj, as Deepti mentioned, sometimes women fear that would they be able to understand what is going on after such a long break. So how do you ensure proper training or upskilling them to keep them updated to the trends?
So each organization has different ways of working, and their industry or their actual work is very different. For software, you make sure everybody gets an online training, simple. These are very pragmatic pointers, nothing specific. So let's say you're working for a software organization, you make sure they have an Udemy access, Coursera access, and you make sure that you are talking to them. There is an HR partner, there is a business manager. They're saying, okay, now you're working on this. If you upskill yourself, you can move directly to a new job role. You don't need to come back to the same job role. So you make sure that when opportunities are there, you are trying people who are coming back from sabbatical, not only females but male as well. I have experienced that there are now my male friends, colleagues are also taking sabbatical for their own, somebody for education, somebody to take care of their parents. But we are encouraging sabbaticals if somebody wants to go for a sabbatical, and when they come back, they should be welcome. It should not be that, okay, they are outdated, they don't know what is happening. For us, we make sure that they have all the accesses, they are part of insurance, they are covered with all the benefits. So they have that same social safety, psychological safety, that yes, they are part of the organization, they have to groom themselves. So it's all about education. You make sure everybody is connected, they're part of communication. Do not eliminate from your DLs and all that, they are not part of the organization. They should get constant communication, what is happening in the organization, so they are plug and play when they join back.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our time is up, but Megha, any last piece of advice for the young HR professionals?
While we are on this topic, a lot of time I fundamentally believe that, you can't be making a decision for a set of group when you don't even understand the problems, what they face, because sometimes when we make decisions, we think that, this is what we should be doing for them. And therefore, before you do anything as an HR person, and that's where the concept of ERG really helps, that talk about the challenges for the underrepresented group who's actually going through it, because they will tell you what they really face on a real ground level, what are the issues, and from there pick it up to say that, how are you going to make your DIE strategy? Because, when we think we are the subject matter experts, maybe sometimes we would be far away from the reality on the ground, because their challenges may not be solved by designing a policy. Their challenges may be solved by, probably thinking about, can they share what they really are going through? And then, really thinking about. So leverage the strength of your people actually on the ground and get in touch with the real issues, real challenges, rather than thinking D&I everybody is doing, oh, there is a new thing that Microsoft has done or Google has done, why don't we replicate in the organization? I think it's a trap. Get to the reality on the ground and then make decisions around what interventions do you want to roll up for the organization. So that's my piece of advice to the younger folks.
Yeah.
Talk about a study. The interesting study, we are all talking about, I'm thinking thoda sa differently. What I'm trying to think is that we are saying, okay, increase the number of women population at the leadership level. But do the women want to go there? No, I don't know. I'm just thinking. While on one way, we are saying that yes, we want to, but somebody also has to understand that woman. Because when she goes through that time of, when there's a life-changing moment in her life and the kid is born, then that emotional thing comes in. I want to be with my child. I want to spend more time, all of that. And there was a very interesting study that I want to share. And this was done by some organization, and that study said that there was a survey that was rolled out. And the survey said it was to male and a female. And they said, okay, you want to apply for this senior leadership position. So they saw that, almost 80-90% male applied. And about 30 or 40%, I'm not exactly right with the percentage, but less women applied for that role. You know what they realized when they spoke to the woman who did not apply? They said that I am not 100%, I don't have all the skills that is defined in the role. And when the men, when they asked, why did all of you apply? They said, I am 50-60% there, I will cover up the rest 40% because I want to plunge into that role and I want to take that lead. So the fact of the matter is that women want to be perfect. And then they said that, unless and until I don't know all the skills, I won't apply. And the man said, okay, let me plunge into it, let me take a leap, and So that was a study done. I'm not saying from a standpoint that, but I'm just trying to reflect upon that. Most of the times, organizations also forget to check what the woman wants and try to drive their agenda, as most of us are speaking, which is, DI and inclusivity and, women and PWD and LGBT, but also let's understand what and how people want their journey in the organization.
Thank you. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us today, and we loved having you here. Thank you once again.